I'm an elder, and I'm the chairman of the Community Outreach Committee. And the Community Outreach Committee runs the food pantry, and I personally run the food pantry. We serve at Friends of the Night People the 5th Wednesday of the month. I love helping people. It's very fulfilling. We believe that if anyone is humble enough to come to a church door and say they need food, they need food. Once a week, 2 of us come into the food pantry, get the bags ready. We give out 20 bags every Tuesday, first come, first serve. So they're lined up, ready to make sure they're one of the 20. It takes less strain off their budget to buy groceries so that they can afford some other things. We have a lot of neighborhood members. Quentin, our community outreach pastor, has started a real leafleting to let people in the neighborhood know of our different programs. Several people have come in and told me, oh, I live on Vermont, or I live on Pennsylvania, or, one of the neighborhood streets. I think the neighborhood would miss us if we ever have to leave.
My role at First Church right now is I am the outreach assistant coordinating the literacy program for the women who come to our PICS program, Partners in Compassionate Service. We attract women basically from around the West Side, and a lot of it is through word of mouth. They tend to be from Africa, and they are at varying levels of readiness to learn to read. One of the neat things about our program is that we provide childcare so the women can come and bring their kids. About midday on Tuesday, I start to pray that there'll be a student for every teacher and a teacher for every student. And our students have a very good success level. When the literacy volunteers come and test them, we have the best results of any place in Western New York. A lot of the women that come here have never been to school anywhere before. So imagine, they come here and they have children going to school, bringing home homework that they can't even read. So instead, these women are going home and they're really encouraged by believing in themselves. And pretty soon, doesn't take very long, they're able to read their kids' homework.
First Presbyterian Church is the oldest continually chartered organization in the city of Buffalo. It actually predates the city and the War of 1812. There was several traveling missionaries that would come through the area back in the early 1800s. They would worship with the pioneers who were establishing a small village in this area. If you're talking about the War of 1812, what it did was it caused the congregation to scatter for a few years. The church was newly organized, and it was Amos Callender who took the county records along with the church records and took them to Batavia, where they were preserved. When the war ended, settlers returned to the area. That really was the start of the real work of the church. The first church building was built in the area of Buffalo, which is called Sheldon Square. When the congregation outgrew that building, on that same property, they built a larger brick church that housed, I believe, about 800 parishioners. And that was there from 1827 until about 1890, when it was bought by the old Buffalo Savings Bank, and it was their headquarters. The present building was designed by the architectural partners of Green & Wicks. Interior was of a Byzantine style. Most of the stained glass windows in the church were put in just prior to the 1924 interior remodeling. And that was the same period of time in which they added the parish house. The pastor at that time was Dr. Buttrick, who became a world-renowned pastor. The most famous window is, of course, our Tiffany windows. And we have one that's called Jerusalem Rising, which is over in the east transept. And in the rear, we have a signed Tiffany window, which is a Jerusalem cross. We have several other windows that were designed by several very famous window designers of that period. For the service, our organist since 1985 has been Dr. David Bond.
I've been here for 28 years, and my role here is organist choirmaster and now adding bookkeeper to that. I started playing for a church when I was 12 years old. I've been doing it for almost 50 years now. It's very gratifying to play. I can play any kind of music on it in terms of any kind of organ literature on it, actually. It's not limited to a particular period. The person who built it and designed it was largely a performer himself and enjoyed playing music from all periods, so the instrument reflects his eclectic ideas. The original organ was installed by Roosevelt, Wilburn Roosevelt. It was a very progressive firm at the time, and that was replaced in 1915 or so by the Austin Organ Company. The Austin was here until this instrument replaced that in 1970. This instrument was built by Robert Nairn. Bob was a Buffalo native and grew up on the other side of Main Street, just opposite where Holy Trinity Lutheran is, right next to the Anchor Bar. He was very close friends with my predecessor, Squire Haskin. They had known each other for a long time when they were both here in Buffalo at the same time. Music affects the service in that it helps the congregation, hopefully helps the congregation understand the Word of God, understand their own feelings about religion. The organ in particular is very helpful for the congregation for singing. It supports the congregation singing better than a piano would, for example, simply because of the breadth of sound. The organ is designed to use the space that it's in basically as a sounding box, kind of like the belly of a violin, for example. First Church Choir is the oldest performing organization in the city, dating from 1816. And it has been largely in the forefront of a lot of styles of music from the Renaissance all the way to the end of the 20th into the 21st century.
Well, as an interim pastor, I have to be the pastor. I do the preaching and some of the teaching and sort of direct the overall program along with my committees and board members. As an interim, the task is a little more specialized in that I have to get the congregation from the past and its former pastor and some of the habits that they developed then, and thinking through the area of thinking about what they want to do next, where they want to go next, what new kinds of things, what different kinds of things do they have to do to be successful in the future. I've been here since November 1st of 2010, which means just a little over 2 years. This is an amazing little congregation. They have a friendliness about them that is really exceptional. They have a diversity that is much wider than any other church I can think of anywhere that I've been connected with, and they really do have a sense of care and love for each other, and so that's been good. That's been the great part of this church for me, because I've always felt that the church needs to be an alternative kind of community. I find almost nobody that hasn't had that hair stand up on the back of their neck or goose pimple on the arm kind of experience at some point. Those moments when, for no good apparent reason, you notice your eyes are full of tears, or your laughter breaks out and you wonder where in the heck that comes from. I always find that when you can get people to talk about those moments, then they sort of find God themselves more than you telling them about God. Most of us, 20th, 21st century folk, particularly in the white community in America, sort of raised with the idea that reason is the most important thing. And, we reason our way to things. And a lot of people try to reason their way to God. It's just not possible. Because you can reason your way out of God faster than you can reason your way into God. Except for this. When you look at your own experiences of where there's been grace and love and even on the other side, hatred and despair, that's when you find somewhere along the line that you could start talking about, in those moments, that's when I really experienced the peace of God, or those were the times when somebody reached out to me, and that's what God's grace is all about. If you can't find an experience of Christ's love in this church, you probably aren't open to it. You come here and you find in the rottenest day, all you got to do is tell somebody it's a rotten day, and it's like, they're there for you. And yet, it's a congregation that if you're going to join this church, you're going to join a church that's struggling a bit. These folks are having a good experience with each other and with God. And that's what I seek for everybody. Join this church, you'll find ways in people to express your faith and grow it.
First Church was first. And if you think about it, when we measure ourselves and what influences our lives, we can trace that back to what influenced our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, because the decisions that were made then affected who we are today.
I think it's important that you really know the people. Phil, the pastor now, has a young people's group, so if they're young, introduce them to that. He has a young families group going. If they're a young family, get them involved in that. The multiculturalness, everybody is so different. There's something for everyone.
I think this has always been a safe haven for people here, whether they could count on getting food or tutoring or spiritual guidance or just belonging to a part of something bigger. I think that the presence of God has just emanated out of this building for all the years that we've been here and 201 years of being a congregation. My overwhelming feeling about this church is my faith in its diversity. We have diversity on every level. And I look around on Sunday morning and I just think, this is the kingdom of God right here. And I really do believe that if a person comes in here and opens their heart and opens their mind, that they're going to find what God's plan is for them to do with their life.
It's a very loving, open congregation, very friendly.
I remember after one of my parents died, coming to church the next day, and no one could believe I came to church, but I said, no, it's my family, I want to be with them.